My son stood in the kitchen I've cooked in for 43 years, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "You raised us, Dad. That was your job. You don't get a trophy for doing what you were supposed to do." Those words didn't just hurt, they ended something. What Nathan didn't know, what neither of my sons knew, is that 4 months before he said that, I had already signed the deed to this house over to someone else. Not to him, not to his brother Owen, to Rosa Delgado, the woman who showed up every single time I needed someone, and never once made me feel like a burden for needing her. And when Nathan lost his job, loaded up a moving truck, and pulled into my driveway assuming he was moving in, that's when things got interesting. My name is Victor Callahan. I'm 71 years old, and I'm speaking to you from a neighborhood in Nashville, Tennessee, where I've lived since I was 26. Before we go any further, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if this story resonates with you, please hit subscribe. What I'm about to share took me a long time to say out loud, but I think it needs to be said. This is a story about the difference between the family you bleed for and the family that actually shows up. I married Diane when I was 25 years old. She was the kind of woman who could walk into any room and make every person in it feel like the most important one there. We weren't wealthy. I was a licensed electrician. She worked scheduling at a medical office, and we bought a 3-bedroom house in East Nashville with every dollar we had saved over 5 years and a small loan from her parents. Nathan came first. Owen followed 2.5 years later, 2 sons. I thought life was handing me everything it had. I worked double shifts for years, took side jobs rewiring old houses on weekends, crawling through attics in August heat. Diane picked up overtime whenever she could. We didn't vacation. We didn't renovate. We just poured everything we had into those 2 boys. When Nathan wanted to play travel baseball, I drove 3 hours each way every weekend for 2 years. When Owen fell behind in school and needed a private tutor twice a week for a full year, Diane and I stopped going out to dinner entirely to cover it. When it came time for college, I took out a second mortgage on this house. Nathan went to the University of Tennessee. Owen chose a school in Colorado. Neither of them had to take on significant debt because I took it on instead. First in either of our families to have 2 college graduates. I remember standing in Nathan's dorm room that first move-in day, trying to hold it together. He hugged me at the door and said, "I wouldn't be here without you, Dad." I drove home with the windows down because I didn't want Diane to see me cry when I got back. Diane died 7 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. From the day they found it to the day she left us was 11 weeks. 11 weeks to say everything, and somehow there was still so much left unsaid. The boys came home for the funeral. They were genuinely devastated. They stayed 4 days. Then their lives called them back, Nathan to his finance job in Chicago, Owen to his real estate business in Phoenix. After that, the silences grew. Phone calls dropped from weekly to monthly to occasional. Visits became holidays only, then not even every holiday. I sent birthday cards with checks tucked inside for the grandchildren I saw maybe twice a year. I got text messages back. "Thanks, Grandpa." Got it. I told myself this was normal. Children grow up. They build lives. I wasn't going to be that father who guilted them for living. So I stayed quiet and figured out how to fill the hours. I joined a woodworking club at the community center, started walking the Shelby Bottoms Trail every morning, took a watercolor class on Thursday evenings at the library annex. I kept busy, but the house was enormous in a way it had never been before. Rooms that used to have a purpose, now just sitting there. I'd make dinner for 4 out of 40 years of habit, realize what I'd done, and cover the rest in foil. The silence had a weight to it. If you've ever lived in a house that used to be full of noise and then one day you realized you couldn't remember exactly when it went quiet, you understand what I mean. It doesn't arrive all at once. It just settles in beside you and stays. Then about 2.5 years ago, I fell. I'd been putting off having the gutters cleaned. October in Nashville, leaves packing in thick. I'd handled it myself every year for over a decade. I climbed up, reached too far to the left, and the ladder went out from under me. I came down hard on the concrete path along the side of the house. My hip absorbed most of it. I couldn't get up. My neighbor Gerald heard me from his driveway and called 911. The hospital said I was lucky, no fracture, but severe soft tissue damage and bruised bone. The doctor was direct. "You're going to need in-home help for several weeks, possibly longer. Is there family nearby?" I called Nathan from the hospital bed. I could hear keyboard clicks in the background while he talked. Dad, I'm in the middle of a product launch. It's all hands on deck right now. Can you hire someone? I can transfer money if you need it. I didn't need his money. I needed my son. I said okay and hung up. I called Owen. Dad, my father-in-law just had knee surgery. He's staying with us right now. The house is completely full. Have you tried a home care agency? Honestly, they're probably better equipped for this than we'd be anyway. Probably better equipped. Translation: this isn't our problem to solve. I put the phone down on the bedside table and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I thought about the last time either of my sons had called just to hear my voice. Not because they needed something, not on a birthday or a holiday, just to call. I genuinely couldn't remember when that last happened. That was the night Rosa Delgado came into my life, even though I didn't know her name yet. The agency sent her the morning I came home from the hospital. Rosa was 54 years old at the time, a widow, 21 years doing in-home care. Her husband Carlos had been killed in a warehouse accident 12 years earlier. She'd raised her 2 kids, Marco and Isabel, mostly on her own after that. From the very first morning, something felt different about her. She didn't just do the job. She actually cared. Every morning at 8 sharp she arrived, helped with what I couldn't manage: medications, meals, getting around. But she also talked to me, asked me real questions about my career, about Diane, about what I thought about when I walked that trail by the river every morning. She showed me pictures of Marco's kids, told me stories about Carlos, how he used to sing the wrong lyrics to every song and somehow make it sound intentional. 2 widows who both knew what it meant to lose your person. We understood each other without having to explain very much. 3 months in, when I'd recovered enough to manage on my own again, I asked her to stay on 2 days a week, light housekeeping and company. She agreed immediately. Those days became the best part of my week. She remembered everything: that I took my coffee black, that I was allergic to shellfish, that I loved biographies but couldn't stomach anything that ended in tragedy. She'd bring paperbacks she found at estate sales. When she made extra tamales on weekends, she brought me a container. For my 70th birthday, she organized a small gathering right here at the house. Invited my woodworking friends, Gerald from next door, a few people from the watercolor class. She baked a cake from scratch and strung lights across the back porch. My sons called. Nathan was on the line for 4 minutes. Owen for 3. They both said they were sorry they couldn't make it out. That birthday was when everything became clear to me. Not in an angry way. More like the way a room looks when someone finally opens the curtains. I had given 30 years of my life to those boys, and this woman, who owed me absolutely nothing, had shown me more consistent, genuine human kindness in a few months than they had in years. I don't say that to condemn them. I say it because it's simply true. They had become skilled at living their lives. They just hadn't figured out how to include me in them. About a year and a half ago, the cracks started showing more clearly. Owen called on a Tuesday afternoon. Unusual timing. That particular tone in his voice, I'd learned what it meant. He needed something. Dad, I'm in a really bad spot. A flip property deal went sideways. Contractor walked off with half the deposit. Now I've got buyers threatening to pull out. I need about $25,000 to get a new crew in and finish the job. I know you've got the life insurance money from Mom sitting there. I'll pay you back in 6 months. With interest if you want. $25,000. I sat with that number. Thought about it for a moment. Then I wired it the next morning, because that's what fathers do. A year passed. Not a dollar came back. During a Christmas call, I brought it up gently. Owen's tone shifted immediately. Dad, I'm barely keeping my head above water right now. You've got a paid-off house and Mom's insurance. I've got a mortgage, 3 kids, a business that's barely breaking even. Just give me some more time. He made me feel unreasonable for asking. I let it go. 6 months later, Nathan called about his daughter's college tuition. They were $18,000 short for her first year. She's your granddaughter, Dad. Her future. I sent the money. It never came back either. When I eventually mentioned it, his response echoed Owen's almost word for word. Dad, you're comfortable. We're not. This is what family does. What family does. I kept turning that phrase over. Meanwhile, Rosa kept coming twice a week like clockwork. When a nasty flu knocked me flat in January, she came every day for a week without billing me for the extra hours. You're my friend, she said. Friends take care of each other. When the water heater flooded part of the basement, she connected me with her nephew who fixed it at cost. No upsell, no drama. When I was particularly low around the anniversary of Diane's death, she took me to lunch at a diner on Gallatin Pike and let me talk for 2 hours about my wife without once checking her phone. I started thinking seriously about what comes next. I was 71, reasonably healthy. But the years move whether you're watching them or not. What happened if I got seriously ill? What happened if I needed real, daily care? Would my sons rearrange their lives the way I rearranged mine for them, year after year without question? I knew the answer. I'd known it for a while. They'd find me a decent facility. They'd visit on holidays. They'd feel guilty enough to do the minimum and not guilty enough to do more. That was the thought that sent me to Harlan Beck's office. Harlan had been my attorney since Diane passed, handled the estate, the life insurance, all of it. I trusted him completely. When I sat down and told him what I was thinking, he didn't react the way I expected. "Victor," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I need you to understand exactly what this means. You want to transfer the deed of your property to someone outside your family." "She is family," I said. "More family than blood has managed to be." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm not here to judge that, but once this is done, the house legally belongs to Rosa Delgado. You'll retain a life estate. You can live there for the rest of your life, but she owns it. Your sons will not inherit it. You understand that completely?" I understood it before I walked in here. He walked me through every implication. The life estate terms, property tax responsibilities, how difficult it would be to reverse. He told me my sons might contest it. He told me relationships would likely change permanently. "What about your boys?" he finally asked. "What about them?" I said. "This is my house, my decision. It was never theirs to begin with." He didn't push further. He'd known me long enough to recognize when my mind was settled. He did make one recommendation, a psychological evaluation from a licensed professional, documenting my sound mind to protect both Rosa and me if my sons challenged the transfer. I agreed. Sat with a psychologist for 2 long sessions. She asked about my history with my sons, my relationship with Rosa, my full understanding of what this decision meant. Her conclusion, completely competent, acting with clear awareness and full intent. 2 weeks later, I sat in Harlan's office with Rosa beside me. He was still explaining the document when she started crying. "Victor, I can't accept this," she said, her voice breaking. "This is your home. This is too much." "It's my house," I said gently. "You made it a home. There's a difference." She tried to refuse 3 times. She was worried about what people would think. Worried my sons would hate her. Worried she was somehow taking advantage of me. Harlan reassured her that every step had been done properly. I told her this wasn't generosity. It was self-preservation. It was making sure that when I couldn't care for myself, I wouldn't be warehoused and forgotten by people too busy to notice. Finally, tears still running, she accepted. We signed the papers on a Wednesday afternoon in February. The house that Diane and I bought 43 years ago, where I'd raised my sons, where she took her last breath in our bedroom, where every room held some version of everything I'd ever been, it belonged to Rosa Delgado. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real, settled, floor of your chest peace. I didn't tell my sons. There was nothing to tell. It was never their house. 4 months later, everything exploded. Nathan called on a Thursday evening. I was in the garage finishing a birdhouse when my phone buzzed. His name on the screen at an odd hour. My stomach dropped before I even answered. "Dad." His voice was tight, controlled, the voice of a man trying to sound calm about something that wasn't calm. "I need to tell you something. I lost my job. Company did layoffs last week. 15 years and they just let me go." I felt genuine sympathy. 15 years. That kind of loyalty. Answered with a pink slip that's a specific kind of gutting. "Nathan, I'm sorry. That's awful. How are you holding up?" "Not great, honestly. Sarah and I have been going over the numbers. With just her income, we can't keep the apartment in Chicago. Rent is insane up here. We've already given notice on the lease." He paused. One of those pauses that isn't really a pause, it's a runway. "So we were thinking maybe we could come stay with you for a while, just until I land something new, probably 3 or 4 months. The house has 3 bedrooms. You're by yourself." "It makes sense, Dad." Not a question. A conclusion he'd already reached. My hands tightened around the phone. I walked out of the garage into the backyard and stood very still. I could feel the whole weight of everything pressing down every time I'd said nothing, every time I'd swallowed what I needed to say, every time I'd told myself that being a good father meant accepting whatever they gave me. Not this time. Nathan, there's something you need to know about the house. What do you mean? It isn't mine anymore. I transferred the deed about 4 months ago. Dead silence. The kind that tells you a person is recalculating everything. What do you mean it isn't yours? You gave it to Owen? I didn't give it to Owen. Then who? His voice was rising, starting to splinter at the edges. Who did you give our house to? It was never your house, Nathan. It was mine. And I gave it to someone who earned it. The silence cracked open. Earned it? Dad, what does that even... Is it Rosa? Did you give the house to your housekeeper? He said housekeeper the way you might say something you'd stepped in. Are you serious right now? You gave our inheritance to a woman who cleans your bathroom? She's not my housekeeper. She's my friend. She's the person who came when you didn't. But I didn't say that yet. There would be time for all of it. I made a fully legal decision, Nathan. With proper legal counsel and a psychological evaluation confirming I was of sound mind. This isn't up for debate. I'm calling Owen. He hung up. Within 40 minutes, I had both of them on a conference call. Both furious. Both speaking over each other in that way people do when the real feeling underneath the noise is something they can't quite name. You gave our inheritance to a stranger? Owen demanded. She is not a stranger, and it was never your inheritance. She groomed you, Dad, Nathan said. She planned this. This is a textbook elder exploitation case. We're getting a lawyer. Please do, I said. Harlan Beck prepared every document. I was psychologically evaluated. Everything is legal and recorded and binding. You won't win. But spend your money finding that out if it makes you feel better. We're your sons. Owen's voice cracked into something raw. That house should have come to us. You raised us there, Dad. Mom died there. How can you give that to someone you've known for 2 years? I want to be honest with you. If you've ever been in the middle of a conversation that you've been dreading for years, and it finally arrives, and it's somehow both worse and more freeing than you imagined, you know how I felt in that moment. My hands were shaking. My heart was hammering. But somewhere underneath all of it, something was perfectly still. I need you both to answer one question, I said. When I fell off that ladder and called you from the hospital, where were you? Not where were you physically. I know where you were, but where were you? Silence. When I sent Owen $25,000 and Nathan $18,000 and asked about getting any of it back, what happened? When I spent 30 years building everything you needed to succeed, do either of you remember a single year where I said I couldn't afford to help you? A single time I told you I was too busy? More silence. A different kind. Then Nathan said it. Dad. His voice had gone flat. Finished with being reasonable flat. You raised us. That was your job. That's what parents do. You don't get a trophy for doing what you were supposed to do. And you don't get to throw away our inheritance because you're upset we don't call enough. The room went very quiet. There it is, right there. I'd been carrying the possibility of that sentence for years, this vague, formless dread that somewhere underneath the polite calls and the holiday texts, this was actually what they thought. That all of it had just been a job, a role I filled. Nothing to be owed, nothing to be recognized, just completed work. You're right, I said quietly. It was a job. 28 years of unpaid labor, no sick days, no vacation, no retirement plan. So consider this my severance package. I bought myself peace of mind. I bought myself someone who actually wonders whether I'm okay. I paused. Let that settle. Good luck with your attorney. I hung up, turned my phone off, sat down at the kitchen table and didn't move for a long time. My hands were still shaking. My chest was tight. But underneath the adrenaline, underneath the grief of what had just broken, there it was again. That stillness. I called Rosa. She was there in less than 30 minutes, even though it wasn't her day. She didn't make a speech about it. She just came in, put on a pot of coffee, sat down across from me, and let me process. At some point I looked at her and said, "Did I do the right thing?" She looked right back at me and said, "You did the brave thing. That's harder." The following Saturday, exactly when Nathan had planned to arrive, a rental truck pulled up in front of the house. I watched from the living room window as Nathan, his wife Sarah, and their 2 kids climbed out. He began unloading boxes onto the driveway without ringing the bell, without asking, without hesitating for a single second, because in his mind this was still just a place he had the right to come back to. I opened the front door before he reached it. He looked up. Something shifted in his face. "Dad, come on. Let's just talk about this inside." "There's nothing to talk about inside, Nathan. This isn't my house to invite you into." "Where is she?" "Rosa." He looked past me into the hallway. "I want to hear her side of this." "She's at work, taking care of someone who needs her, like she always does." Sarah stepped forward. She looked exhausted, genuinely worried, not performing it. "Victor, please, we have kids. We've got nowhere to go right now. Can we just sit down?" I looked at her. I looked at my grandchildren standing behind her, watching me with wide, confused eyes, not understanding what was happening. Part of me wanted to waver. Part of me felt the pull of every habit I'd built over decades: give in, give ground, smooth it over, just be the dad they need. But then I thought about the hospital bed. I thought about the $25,000 and the $18,000 and the birthday where they each called for less than 5 minutes. I thought about what Nathan had said on the phone 2 nights ago. "You had months to figure out a plan," I said. Nathan knew he was likely losing this job. There was time. The decision to arrive at my door without any other option was made by you, not by me. "So that's it?" Nathan's voice had moved past anger into something quieter, more dangerous. "You're really doing this? You're going to turn your own grandchildren away? I'm asking you to leave a property that isn't mine to offer. That's what I'm doing. You'll regret this." He said it like a verdict. "You'll end up alone and you'll have no one to blame but yourself." I held the door, steady, didn't raise my voice. I'd rather be alone in a house that means something than disrespected in one that doesn't. And I'm not alone. That's the part you keep missing. They left. Boxes went back into the truck. The kids were confused and upset, and I felt that. I'll carry that for a while. But I watched the truck back out of the driveway, and then I closed the door, and I sat down on the living room floor, not on a chair, on the floor, and I cried. Not because I was sad, because I was free. Because somewhere in the last half hour, I had finally stopped pretending that what they gave me was enough. I had stopped bending myself into a shape that was convenient for everyone else, and calling it love. Rosa came that evening. She brought soup and didn't ask too many questions. We ate in the kitchen and let the quiet be comfortable. That's something you only have with people you've known long enough to trust the silences. The legal challenge came next, exactly as expected. Owen's attorney sent letters: undue influence, mental competency concerns, caregiver exploitation, all the predictable language. Harlan answered every point methodically. The psychological evaluation. The documentation. Bank records proving Rosa had never accessed my accounts, never requested money, never applied any financial pressure. Statements from Gerald next door, from people in my woodworking club, from anyone who'd watched our friendship develop over nearly 3 years. The letters became increasingly aggressive, then abruptly stopped. Harlan called me on a Monday morning. "They've dropped it, Victor. The attorney likely told them the truth. They have no case. No evidence of manipulation. No competency challenge that holds up. No path forward. It's done. The house is Rosa's. Legally. Permanently." My son stopped calling entirely after that. No texts. No emails. Radio silence. I waited for the grief of that to arrive in some crushing form. I waited for regret to creep in. For doubt to whisper that I'd gone too far. I waited for the weight of severed family relationships to press down on me the way I knew it could. It never came. What came instead was lighter, like I'd put down something I'd been carrying so long I thought it was just part of my body. Rosa officially moved in 6 weeks ago. She sold her apartment and brought her life here. We share the kitchen, divide up the house the way 2 people do when they're genuinely building something together. Her son Marco came over last weekend to fix a loose railing on the porch stairs, wouldn't hear of being paid. "You're family now, Victor," he said. That word from someone with no obligation to say it landed somewhere deep. "Thanksgiving is coming. Rosa has already told me I'm not spending it alone. You're coming to my sister's place," she said. "Isabel is flying in from Denver. Marco's bringing the kids, and my sister makes enough food for about 40 people. You're coming and that's the end of it. I'm going." This story taught me something I want to leave with you. It taught me that love, real love, the kind worth something, isn't about biology. It's about showing up. It's about remembering the small things. It's about arriving on the hard days, not just the easy ones. I gave my sons every advantage I could give a person, but I forgot to teach them that love is a practice, not a condition. The mistake I made, and maybe you recognize it too, is believing that keeping the peace was the same as maintaining the relationship. Every time I swallowed what I needed. Every time I sent money without asking to be paid back. Every time I said I'm fine when I wasn't. I was teaching them that there were no consequences to taking me for granted. I made it easy to disappear. And then I was surprised when they disappeared. If someone in your life is receiving everything you have to give and offering almost nothing in return, this story is for you. Not to make you angry, but to ask you honestly, how much longer are you going to wait for them to notice? And one action you can take today, just one, is this. The next time someone treats your time, your love, or your sacrifice like it's owed to them, don't swallow it. Say something. Not because it will change them, because it will change you. Before I go, I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment. Type 1 if you think I made the right call. Type 2 if you understand it but aren't sure you'd have done the same. Type 3 if you think I went too far. There's no wrong answer. I'll read every single one. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are right now? Tell me in the comments. And if you've ever given everything to someone who treated it like nothing, share your story below. You are not alone in this. Not even close. If this story moved you, please subscribe to this channel. It costs you nothing, and it means everything to the people telling these stories, because some of us have been quiet for far too long. I'm Victor Callahan. This is my truth. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined in Nashville, Tennessee, to create original content. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental.